4:30, Jacksonville Jaguars coming off the big comeback win over the Los Angeles Chargers, going into the Kansas City Chiefs, first round bye. KC's a big 8.5-point favorite here. They met around week 10, week 11, or earlier in the season, where the Chiefs started off 20-0 real quick. And as the Jaguars have done and will continue to do all season, is fight back, make the game interesting. But they fell short just being the less talented team to Kansas City. So I think it's going to be a similar fashion where the Chiefs are going to score. The Jaguars, looking young, the way they're a young football team, they're going to make mistakes. They might come back, make a close game, but then at the end of the day, they're going to fall short on a mistake. And KC, when you need them to score, they can score. They're not the Chargers, right? When you need the Chargers to score, they can't put up numbers for you. KC, you can almost guarantee if you need them to score, they're going to find a way to score. So I'm going to go KC. I don't know if I'm going to go 8.5, but I'm going to go KC.
Yeah, 8.5 is crazy.
I guess I'll go next. Are we sleeping on Kansas City? Like, is the nation sleeping on Kansas City? I don't hear a lot of talk of them being in the Super Bowl. I heard a lot of Cincinnati, lots of Buffalo. Philly's come up a lot. San Francisco of recent. But Kansas City, I mean, why not finish top seed in the AFC? I think this one's going to be a kind of a mismatch for KC. At first, I was like 8.5. That's too much. Jacksonville should be able to cover that, kind of like Brady said, maybe make it close at the end of the day. But I think I settled on KC, keeping them at bay. Jacksonville offense hasn't been super consistent. They've shown that they can put up points, but they really get that engine going when they get turnovers. I don't think Kansas City is going to hand them too many turnovers, if any. And I think Kansas City is going to come out there. They're going to execute. They're going to take a lot of time of possession because that's the new Kansas City. Very methodical, but they're going to cash in at the end of the day. I like it to be 27-14, 27-17 maybe. I'm going to go KC here. I think they cover too.
Well,
how about you, Ed?
Obviously, we've seen in the regular season Kansas City beat up on Jacksonville. It wasn't very good. But everybody and anybody that knows anything about the NFL and football knows that when it comes to playoffs, sometimes you get into a playoff game and you dog this team before, okay? During the regular season, And then you get to the postseason and you play this team, and the team ends up beating you. And you're like, how? Why? How did this happen? We just dogged them before. Like, I don't get this. I don't understand. So playoffs is a completely different time. It's not the regular season, okay? Everything's on the line. Your entire life up until that point is on the line. This is what you've been doing your whole life. This is what you came here for to do. So it's like all or nothing. Like, you're not playing around. Everybody's coming. But just like you guys said before, it's a young team. Trevor Lawrence had 5 turnovers in that game against the Chargers. And you know what? That defense let them come back. And they let them come back roaring, and they end up winning that game. But this Patrick Maholmes team is a well-coached team, Andy Reid and them boys. You got Mahomes, okay, and you got Travis Kelce. I don't see this being a situation where Trevor can go 5 interceptions and come blazing back and win the game. He had an incredible year, though. 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 4,000 yards, 584 attempts. Incredible. Mahomes, 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 648 attempts. He had Trevor Lawrence had 584. I mean, comparable numbers, incredible numbers for a year 2 guy against Mahomes, the predecessor after Brady leaves and there's no more Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be Mahomes and Allen. And all of a sudden you have this Trevor Lawrence putting up Mahomes-type numbers behind a Doug Peterson team, But I don't think that today is their day. I mean, the Chiefs team is a really good team. I can't get past how good the Chiefs are all on all facets of the game. Coaching, offense, defense, like that offensive line. You know, you got Jacksonville's made up of a bunch of free agents and a bunch of draft picks. Man, I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna pull that all together this week. I mean, because they scraped one out last week. You know, they scraped that out. I mean, they came back. They played second half football incredible. You can't do that against Kansas City. And ladies and gentlemen, for that, I'm out. I'm taking KC on this one. How do you bet against Mahomes and what Travis Kelce's doing? Travis Kelce, 1,338 yards, 12 touchdowns in the tight end position. Christian Kirk, 84 receptions, 1,108 yards, 8 touchdowns. The man is on fire this year. By far his best season, probably the best season a tight end's ever had. I can't go against that. You know, no matter how good Trevor Lawrence played in that second half, you're going to have to do that for 4 quarters against KC. And I just don't know if he's developed to this point right now come Saturday. I'm going Kansas City Chiefs here. I don't know. How about you, Nikki?
Yeah, so divisional game wise, I hate to I'm not trying to get into like the numbers or like the previous regular season games and how this team beat this team in the regular season, because we're at the divisional round now and it's a whole different ball game. And then another thing for me, you know, they talk about teams coming off the bye week. Sometimes they struggle. You know, I dove into that a little bit. Last year, the bye week teams went 1-3, so they did struggle. The Packers got upsetted. The Tennessee Titans got upsetted. So that was last year, but the numbers are actually it's 18-5 over the last like 15 years or whatever, something like that, or 20 years, something like that, where the bye week team is actually winning the game. It's like 67% they're winning and 35% they're losing. So, but another thing that sticks out for me is Andy Reid is 28-5 off the bye week. That's incredible. And he's 9-1 with Patrick Mahomes on his team, so off the bye week, and that's including playoffs. So off the bye week, the Kansas City Chiefs are safe. Two factors for this game that set it apart for me, and that's the tight end position. Eddie already touched on Travis Kelce's 1,400-yard season, 12 touchdowns. That's the one thing Jacksonville lacks. I like the offense. I like the matchup. I think Jacksonville can keep it close. All the skill positions are there. They have the intangibles to do everything. Doug Peterson is not going to be scared coming into this game facing off against Andy Reid. He spent many, many years with Andy Reid. He spent 3 in Philly with him, 7 in KC, or not KC, excuse me. Charlie, help me out here.
Green Bay.
He was with him in Green Bay as a player, and then he was also with him somewhere else. So he spent a lot of time with Andy Reid. He knows what to expect. He's not going to come in here nervous playing against Andy Reid. But the thing that sets it apart is they rank in the bottom pack, or the bottom end of the pack in the NFL for tight end position. They've led up over 1,000 yards to tight ends this season, and Travis Kelce has over 1,000 yards. So that matchup's really tough for them. I think that's what separates it for me. And then Andy Reid being 28-5 on the bye week, 9-1 with Mahomes there. I think that's what separates it for me. Keeping it close with Jacksonville, hopefully. They can't start slow like they did last week. They got to start hot and keep it hot the whole way through, or else Casey is going to run away with this one. But I got it like 31-24. 31-23, something like that.
You know, that would have been my argument too if we were doing X Factors and you wanted me to choose X Factors. I would have chose Travis Kelce as my X Factor for Kansas City, and I would have chose Trevor Lawrence for my X Factor on Jacksonville, and that's why I ultimately would have ended up picking Kansas City to begin with, because I don't think that, even though Trevor Lawrence's record in the playoffs is just amazing, I just don't see it happening against this team this day.
Also, the tight end position over there on the other side for Jacksonville, Ingram had another incredible season for the Jags. Kind of unexpected. I mean, 800 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 10.5 a catch. I mean, they needed that. Coming off a couple shaky seasons in New York.
Good for him.
But yeah, not to keep playing the broken record here of Travis Kelce here, but obviously that tight end position is going to be something they need to worry about, because just last week against the Chargers, Gerald Everett, who's been quiet all season, was 6 for 109 and a touchdown. So clearly that's a problem they're going to need to address, that they were lacking against the Chargers, that they're going to have to really focus on coming in here on KC.
And that's been all season, buddy.
And you don't want to get caught lacking against Andy Reid and them boys, bro. I'm telling you.
What's the difference between a second-year Joe Burrow coming into KC last year with a young team, just like we're talking about right now, and pulling off a W, as opposed to
You said, what's the difference?
Second-year Trevor Lawrence coming in with a young team and pulling off a W?
You said, what's the difference?
My thing is the Kansas City Chiefs are 9-1 off the bye week with Patrick Maholmes and Andy Reid at the helm.
To answer your question.
And Jacksonville surrendered 1,087 receiving yards to tight ends this year and 13.1 yards per reception to tight ends. I mean, Eddie will answer your question more thoroughly, but it's hard to pick against for me.
No, it was I'm taking Kansas City.
No,
I'm not a
for sure.
believer in that, but circumstantial. We were in this circumstance this time last year too. And go ahead.
we were, and I mean, I just Joe Burrow and what we've seen from him and Jamar Chase that year last year were something that we haven't really seen before. Rookie and year one guy. I mean, we just never really kind of like seen anything like that. And I thought we were going to get to see that with Etienne Jr. and Lawrence, but we didn't. And he ended up getting hurt. It was a tragedy. He ended up getting hurt in practice, tearing ligaments in his knee before the season even started. So we never even got a chance to see that. But them to click in the way they did, and then again, the middle linebacker for Cincinnati too, Wilson, playing just out of his mind, come out of nowhere too. So I feel like when you have like those two things and everybody's feeding off that, that's incredible. I'm not saying that they don't have something like that going on here with Jacksonville. It's just the mistakes in the big show for me moving forward, and then the fact that it's Travis Kelce. You couldn't do it all year. What makes you think this game?
In similar fashion, and comparing it to Joe Burrow is pretty fair, considering
it is.
The man threw 4 interceptions in the first half and then came back to win that game. That's
Incredible.
something Joe Burrow would I could almost say Joe Burrow could pull off, because he just doesn't care. He goes, hey, it happens. Next play, I can still score again.
But to be fair, while talking about Joe Burrow, I've never heard any quarterback ever in my life speak about the stat an interception the way he does. So the way he looks at an interception, the sack in general, to me is just, I don't know. This dude's just cut different. He's just built different. I mean, to me, he's not Trevor Lawrence, and I wouldn't compare the two. I think Joe is.
To
just
answer the question, it's Joe Burrow.
I just think Joe Burrow's in a different. Like, if anything, I'm going to compare him to Matty Ice coming out of Boston College, if anything. The way...
I agree. Joe Burrow over Trevor Lawrence. Just the quick answer on that is quarterback position being different. Because with all things being equal, the teams, again, like I laid out, very similar fashion than it was this time last year. And ironically enough, Cincinnati was down, 20-0 in that game? Similar to what Jacksonville was down to the Chargers.
Yeah.
So I think personally Jacksonville is going to have to score. They're going to have to consistently score. They're going to have to score right away, and that would give them a chance in this game. I don't know if they can do it because they've been very inconsistent, although they've put together a lot of wins down the stretch. They haven't been consistently good, and like you touched on with turnovers and all that good stuff, it's a tough ask to beat a very sound Kansas City team off the bye, like you mentioned, Nick, and
the weakest,
well rested.
The weakest point on their team. Their weakest point on their team is the strongest point on the Kansas City Chiefs team in Travis Kelce. Like, that's their weakest spot, literally, is covering the tight end. So it's tough for me.
And mistakes.
All right, let's move on though. All right, Saturday night game.